Welcome to the first episode of the Hidden Layers podcast. I'm the host, Michał Przątka. And today we are going to talk about vibe coding, or more broadly about AI-assisted software engineering. I invited two of my good friends, Michał Warda and Tomek Gancarczyk. Both of them I highly respect, and they have a lot of software engineering experience. Tomek is an independent consultant now working mainly on AI and leveraging the AI tools in his daily work. Michał is also a senior engineer with a lot of experience, including a CTO role in a software agency, now managing his own startup called QSpeak. And I wanted to bring them together to explore, discuss with people who actually use those tools on a daily basis and discover or share how these tools impact or can impact productivity of a senior engineer if applied properly. I hope you will find the conversation both interesting and entertaining. So let's go. I have so much material that it can probably take even 8 hours. So let's start with basics. Do you like vibe coding as a term?
For me, it's more about the assisted coding, but I like vibe coding as a term because it's something fresh. But looking like from the perspective of a few years back, I think AI assisted coding is like a broader term that defines this, I think, more interesting way.
Yeah.
And vibe coding is like one flavor of AI assisted coding.
It is an interesting term. It was introduced by Andrej Karpathy in the famous tweet. I initially liked it a lot. But Michał, what about you? Do you like the term?
It took me a long time to get used to working with AI. And vibe coding part was a crucial moment for me for giving away the leader role during coding. For me, the vibe coding term means you're no longer the one who is leading when programming together with AI. You're the one commenting and suggesting, etc. But there is another person, or I don't know, entity, let's call
entity,
it,
yeah,
that does the hard work.
I think Karpathy actually coined the term being engineer himself, the way you describe it, that we have an engineer vibe coding and supervising agents. And it was embraced by also non-technical crowd. And I think now it has a reputation of just non-technical people building apps, which is probably not what Karpathy meant initially.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's a crucial thing that happened. That was a very reputable source saying, I'm giving away my, even though I have so much experience, so much knowledge, and I'm the guru here, I'm giving away the lead in this coding part to an AI, so you should also try it.
There is a difference between engineers using this kind of approach and non-technical people. And again, the term was embraced by non-technical people and sometimes is now associated with people who don't understand the topics of security, scalability, and good engineering, just building apps. I still see a lot of resistance among senior engineers. I've had a lot of conversation with people who are, again, just see this as okay, this is good for non-technical crowd, not for me. What do you think? Do you also see this?
Yeah. I think the problem is that some of those engineers have tried or used some software like 1 year ago, or even 1.5 years ago. They used like GitHub Copilot in the beta phase, and they still have this idea about coding with AI and the agents that is not like the current state, because it's changing so rapidly that it's different than it was like even 6 months ago. So my general advice would be to just refresh knowledge and try again, and even in next 6 months try again, because this will be like a different experience. Yeah, something. Yeah, I see a lot of resistance right now, but I also work. We even do sometimes tasks like this. That there is a technology you don't know. Here we have an AI IDE with AI agent. Try to implement some tickets, and without the AI agent, it's really hard. Yeah, yeah, and so especially if the technology is not your primary technology. So
Yeah.
yeah, so giving the challenges to the team helps to understand the benefit.
And Michał, do you also see resistance in your conversations?
I would say I'm getting less and less resistance. There are companies that are still really afraid of sharing their code base externally. So that is one of the challenges of working with the tooling because, let's be honest, as Tomek said, the state-of-the-art part is doing okay right now, but the models that are still privately hosted are not that great when doing stuff, especially the new wave using so much tooling. So essentially, 3/4 of stuff that the AI is doing is essentially calling
Tools.
different tools.
Yeah.
Similarly to how we code, it requires a lot of computing power because the context is growing rapidly. So we don't have great open source alternatives yet.
But that resistance is actually a valid point. Yeah, I'm talking about probably people who just don't understand the current capabilities. There are two posts I read recently, and I think you also know them. One is the title was something like "My AI friends" or "The AI skeptics are nuts," and another was "Coding agents cross the chasm" or something like that. There were. And again, from the perspective of senior engineers who are building stuff and leveraging this, I remember a quote there. Somebody says like, it feels like drinking rocket fuel in engineering. And I really strongly believe that you can multiply your productivity by, 10x, 20x, if you have solid engineering skills. And I hope to make this as a kind of like the theme of our conversation with you. Again, I respect your engineering skills and I learned a lot from you. If you don't have solid engineering skills, you are not doing vibe coding. You're doing YOLO coding. Rather.
Yes, that's a very valid point. I wanted to emphasize this, that the AIs tend to produce terrible code or unmaintainable code if you don't know what you're doing. But it's similar to how you would work with junior/mid engineers, especially on the architecture level. For example, working with certain parts of code, like simple algorithms, it's unreasonable to code it manually. Usually those parts of code, small parts that have some logic in them, and the logic is pretty easy to test, with unit tests, etc. Writing this code manually right now is like a thing of the past. If you're not using AI to write this type of code, you're not using your time efficiently. When it comes to architecture, the overall experience, you can vibe code with the AI on it, but you have to have the idea by yourself. So essentially what I'm saying is that there are parts of code that I'm no longer writing. I don't put even a enter or a space in those parts of code. The only part that I'm worried about while doing them is testing. And that part still needs to have an idea.
What does actually vibe coding mean in June 2025? We mentioned a few things. I started with my alt-tab experience, which I feel is no longer the key feature. You mentioned tool use. Tomek mentioned that generally he feels that this should be called agentic coding or AI agentic assisted coding. I don't know if I'm quoting you correctly. Maybe you can give us a definition of what we are actually talking about here.
I think for me, one of the new aspects is it adds some amount of playfulness for me. It's like it's really nice to code, having a second head which is an AI agent. I like to work with teams. I like to collaborate on some features I'm implementing. I like to talk to a second developer about what I do. And this gives like an instant feedback, like a rubber duck on steroids. And also it's like really, it's also playful. I would say it's really nice to to work in this way. So it's still the outcome should be based on like good foundations, like proper version control, breaking things to smaller problems, modularity, and all these things that are related to implementing scalable and good code. But it adds a nice layer of playfulness. Yeah.
Fun of playing with stuff. And
Fun, yeah.
Mika, what about you? What does vibe coding mean? Again, I'm specifying this mid to 2025 because what it means in 3 months' time can be different.
Yeah, I would say that in my work environment, especially when working on UX level, so not only coding, but on a UX level, we always did some mock-ups to show how the application would behave. And when I work with someone on it, I usually wasn't the one at the keyboard, but the designer was there. And the designer was like clicking, making it look pretty. I was, okay, let's move this button. And we were just sitting at one computer and doing it. Now it's the same thing, but not in Figma, but directly in code. For me, vibe coding is the idea being directly put into code straight from my head without me typing a lot of code.
I think this is actually a very interesting definition or aspect. There is really minimal friction. You just sit and build, and it's very easy to get into this flow of building, fixing, diagnosing. There is no burden of just like going through some boilerplate code or starting from scratch. So the experience is just nicer, I guess. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so you can break things really fast, and the feedback loop is like really short. And because the feedback loop is really short, it also gives me pleasure because I can see the results or understand the results like much quicker. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. Yeah.
And feel it. Feel the vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I want to now explore a little more this thesis that I have, which is if you are a senior engineer, vibe coding, you can boost your productivity by an order of magnitude, but you need to have solid engineering principles in your DNA when you do that. Can you maybe elaborate on that? If you agree, if you disagree, of course, feel free to elaborate as well. What kind of engineering skills you find particularly useful when working like this?
First of all, when it comes to scalability of the solution, there are ways to write code in an unscalable way and in a scalable way. So understanding the basics of programming architecture is pretty important. The principles that are good for you to follow is also pretty important. And understanding which parts of code you should own and which ones should you maybe give up to libraries, etc. It's a feeling based on experience, usually, that this, based on my experience, should be done this way, this should be done this way, this should be done this way. And you should be able to criticize the AI for how it's writing code and ask it to do it differently based on the...
I just wanted to address what you've just said, that, you said, I feel, my intuition is such and such because I have experience. I think that engineering is not art, it's science, it's method. There are certain things that you need to do. Don't repeat yourself, keep it simple, like proper architectural decisions. And I was just wondering whether you feel that those principles are more important on how they play out in your regular work right now.
Yes, I would say that the first and most important part, it's a principle called, from the solid part of object-oriented, is dependency injection, so inversion of control. Whenever writing code, there is a term called boundaries, and you should understand that this part of code should not know about this part of code. And this is the main differentiator also between junior and senior developers, so understanding how one part of code should interact with another one. And the most important part of this is definitely the inversion of control, so that this code does not have too much information about the whole context. AI has the biggest problem with this because it goes through your whole code base, searches for different parts of code, and it has a tendency to use stuff that it should not use based on this context. It should even sometimes repeat itself, sometimes do it differently. It's based on experience and my feeling, but it's all grounded in certain coding rules. And I will probably talk about context and what to ask AI to do later, but the most important part for me is to give AI information about what it should not do. Yeah. So
I think like when vibe coding or AI assisted coding, it's similar like it's under development. The foundations are the same. And for me, the AI assisted coding is like a multiplier. It's not like addition of the skills. The more experience you have, it multiplies your capabilities more. So if you don't understand what you are creating, you gain less from the vibe coding. And it's the same as Michał said. You really give a task for AI to implement some simple feature, and you come back and it's all over the place, and it touches the parts of the code it shouldn't never even look to. So it's not that easy to direct it to do only to keep it simple and do stuff that are good enough and work. And everything other, it's not about prompt engineering. It's about planning, structuring, doing the same stuff when you do normally. So like having like a clear requirements, keeping change log, creating tasks, like verifying what you do, breaking things down.
I would add one thing. The AI tends to sometimes write code in a old-fashioned way or use old stuff. For example, there are new frameworks, libraries being used right now that are obviously in some terms better, especially in dynamically growing languages like TypeScript or like the web world usually. It's very easy for AI to write unmaintainable code in a sense that it's using very old stuff. So you have to also keep in mind what libraries you want to use and why. You might use AI to ask that, to do some research, etc., before implementing it, but it tends to sometimes stick with the old stuff. So understanding that this is not the state of the art right now from the tooling it should be using is very important because it gives you a huge maintenance cost later, especially if you don't write it nicely, because the old libraries are scattered all around your system.
And I actually also think that there are some things that are now maybe more important or are more important in this kind of setup. You hinted at this earlier that AI's agents are still struggling managing big systems and large code bases. I think this might revive the concept of microservices. If you need to make decision, maybe you will go towards that architecture, just knowing that you want to embrace AI in your system. Another thing that I use a lot these days is test suites and linters or type checkers. Even if I just start working on a code base that's already there and it doesn't have a test suite, my first thing would be to ask AI to build a test suite so that I feel comfortable working with agents and changing this code base.
Yeah, for sure. Having a lot of coverage of tests helps to change things with AI and to verify them.
Tests are great to understand what is happening in the code base. So without even writing tests, analyzing the code that is already there is pretty important. Cursor chat should not only be used to write code. You can talk with it about different stuff. You can ask it to explain code to you that is written. It doesn't have to change the lines. It's very important. Also, researching stuff is pretty important also.
The mental model that I have here is that agents can be extremely good at leveraging feedback loops. So if I am able to build a feedback loop that an agent can use, such as a linter or test suite or maybe other things, then the performance will just increase significantly because they can just, without me even supervising it, they can just code through all the linting problems or test problems, and then I come back when it's green again.
I don't want to repeat what you've said, but you've exactly explained TDD. So where
TDD on steroids now, because you are not coding, or it's not like pair programming. You're just supervising agents doing it.
Yes, but the important part of the feedback loop is that AI gets also quick feedback. So having a solid test suite requires less input from you. You're essentially required to give requirements, and it's converted to a test. Test is run. It fails again. Linters or type checkers are also a part of test suite, but run at a different rate. So essentially, it's static code checking rather than dynamic runtime checking.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing, just a different type of feedback loop. And having a repository that has all of those stuff is much better for the AI to work with. So
and it's easy to do it.
Yeah, it's
these
easy
days.
to be.
Yeah, it's not hard to like you have a code base without proper linter setup or whatever. 15 minutes and you have some basic stuff that you can already build upon.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So the quality is reaching. Yeah, like the base quality can be like implemented really fast.
Yeah.
And I would get to the part about understanding code, because for me it's much quicker, and based on what I do, it's much quicker to start working with a repository I don't know, and it's really easy for me to understand it. Without agentic coding, it would take much more time.
So you just like when you onboard to a new code base, you start asking questions.
I talk to the chat. It doesn't generate any code, but I just talk to it. So, and also what I do is it's really nice to work with. If you have a few services, you can put them in one workspace, index this like all these services together in Cursor, for example, and you can understand those are different repositories, but you can understand the relation between services. I found that not everyone is using this fully, but it's really like a boost, because now you can understand, I don't know, you have 5 services, and the AI can understand the interaction between them, which is like another level of understanding.
Yeah, and I would also add, if we're moving to the technical part of using AI, for example, Cursor has this Cursor rules, and they can be split among different directories also. So for example, if AI uses parts of this code, it also has to abide by these rules. Or, of course, it's suggested through the prompt.
Well, I definitely want to explore the details of your setup, but just to finish what it means to be a good vibe coder or vibe coding engineers, I just wanted to also come back to this feedback loop is a mental model I have. What other mental models you have in your head when working with those agents that you find useful?
I would say there are 2 paths. One of which is programmers want to own the code that they write. And AI at this stage, we're getting close to the idea that we're no longer owning the code that is written. So essentially, it's like working with a teammate rather than working with a junior or doing it yourself. I would say that one of the parts is not being afraid to give out ownership. After maybe I would call it a code review. Don't be afraid to give ownership of the code or give the license to the AI to lead, which is a huge milestone. This is the difference between, for me at least, the difference between vibe coding today and a year ago. The second one is, if you're not ready to give out the ownership, or you don't want to, or your part of the application is too crucial for you to give out ownership, then don't do it, but still use AI to improve the speed of coding, especially for stuff like algorithms, etc. Don't be afraid to do it.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you say that you treat AI now as your kind of co-author or partner, because one of the mental models I use is that this is actually not my peer. This is not my partner. It is maybe a very eager and hard-working intern, but I need to monitor and control most of the stuff. and it's on me to make sure that the intern delivers what should be delivered.
For me, it depends on the project because the agentic coding helped me like to do stuff I never had time to do. I have a small kid, so I can generate games for him. I never had time to write code for gaming, and I'm not a game developer. So when I'm creating like a low-stake game that is like a simple game, custom game for my kid, the ownership doesn't matter to me. And it doesn't have to be optimized, doesn't have to be beautiful, just the outcome matters. But when I'm developing stuff that is important and must be production ready, for me, it's not like a peer, but it's like a tool that I need to monitor. So it's the same as you.
Yeah.
I need to control it.
That distinction is actually very interesting and very important from my perspective. I don't anthropomorphize. It's a tool that I use. Yeah, it's not another coder that I talk to. Yeah, even if I have some inclinations to anthropomorphize, I still use it as a tool.
Karpati also mentioned that it changed for him when he started to use voice to vibe code, which is, I would say, another level. And it's really cool when you just sit at your desk, press a shortcut or whatever, it doesn't matter, and you just start talking, and the only thing left to do is press enter and grab a coffee and come back. This for me...
So this is your life now, Michał?
No, not all. I wish. No, but for me, this part is I'm starting to anthropomorphize the AIs. I'm starting, and I would say it feels good.
Interesting. But again, just to finish this on how to be a good vibe coder, one thing that I also wanted to cover is context and working with LLMs generally. Like, what kind of skills do you need to be a vibe coder? I think maybe not necessarily prompting as such, but just understanding how LLMs work and how you work with context is pretty important. What do you think?
I would say the most important part is something you've already mentioned. When AI is working on a file, it gets information about linter and type problems. So if it makes a programmer's life better, it usually makes an AI life better. So a good tooling setup for the for the AI is pretty crucial because it takes a very small amount of context to give information that something's wrong in this line, rather than having a whole file needed to be scoured through to find a problem. Yeah. So having static tooling in the background is pretty important for the context. And the second part, from the context perspective, having small files is pretty important for AI to be able to go through it as a whole rather than going through a part of the file, because it takes at least a few tool calls to get to the part that it's looking for. When it comes to prompting, you don't have to be precise, but don't be afraid to go back. That's my... So you can ask it.
And then like go back in the conversation?
Yeah, go back into the conversation. I'm doing it more and more often. So essentially I ask it, it does something that's not perfect, and instead of asking it, no, make it better, I go back straight to the top and just start with my better understanding of what needs to be done.
Okay.
That's a tactic that I've started using more and more often. So essentially trying to work with as small of a context as possible with as precise questions or requests as possible. That is the best tactic for me. I know that people started using the max mode to work completely differently. So essentially,
max mode of what? Of cursor?
Max mode of cursor, or windsurf has it under a different name. But essentially, fill the million token context. But I prefer when the AI is just giving me a wall of text in a matter of a few seconds, rather than waiting a minute before it chucks through the context.
Okay.
So that's my tactics, and also the last part, the rules. So it's very important for AI to understand what type of application it is writing, why is it writing it. So essentially, a good README in a form of cursor rules, which it can generate automatically. You can ask it, based on the US README, generate rules in the main directory, and it will do it. Cursor has it built in. So it has understanding that it's, for example, writing a Rust application in this framework, this, and it's just less going back, less improving stuff.
For me, it's interesting to watch how LLMs develop in the large context is getting better. So it's very tempting to push a lot of stuff into the context. But it's really interesting because it's like a superhuman. So it takes like a few seconds, and you can even right now in Pusher, you can push like the whole code base into the context window using the folders feature. And it's really interesting. It's like something different than from Michał says that limit the context, just point to the specific parts. But I'm interested how it will develop in the future. Yeah? So maybe working with the AI agents will be like less and less. It will work less and less like human do things. So iteratively search one thing after another. Maybe this will grow into something that is not possible to reconstruct as a human, this workflow. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Well, for sure, these tools will change and
Yeah,
evolve.
it's even hard to predict how this will work.
I still plan to ask you a little bit about future and your predictions, but before we do that, I work with LLMs a lot, as probably you as well. I mean, I chat to Claude, I chat to ChatGPT, and I just kind of now have this understanding of how they behave and how context guides this behavior. I feel that I need to help and guide certain discussions to make sure that we explore right paths. And Michał, you mentioned this earlier, that you might end up having like, okay, this is a dead end, we come back. I sometimes, rather than doing that, I explicitly ask the agent to explore various options, recommend the best one. Or another tip that I really recommend, end your request with something like, if you want to clarify, ask me questions. Yeah, it's just, again, pushing the intern into the right behavior. And it works. I mean, at least from my experience, it works.
I would say, going back to the original question, what is vibe coding? I'm at a point where I use AI as a way to show on the screen my stream of thoughts, and I'm usually wrong when asking, because that's why I anthropomorphize it, because I no longer try to come up with a plan to implement a feature or even understand the feature before implementing it. It's like you jump straight into coding. And after a few iterations, I noticed, no, it does not make sense. It's like no longer I have a board where I write stuff, no longer I have tickets where I have requirements. All of it is done directly on the screen in the code, because the feedback loop is so quick of just pouring your thoughts into direct functionalities that I usually need to take a step back, because I came up with a bad idea that doesn't feel good. So especially, Tomek mentioned game dev. This is the core of perfect game dev. So essentially coming up with an idea, implementing it, and then trying to, how does it feel when you play it? And I love the fact that I can do it as a single person plus AI on my computer in a very short feedback loop. So that's why I'm moving back, and that's why my tactic, I sometimes want the AI to... can we swear? Sometimes I want the AI to fuck up, right? And it's not only a matter of coding fuck up. It's a matter of implementing the feature that is not needed. And having this and being the critic of it is very cool. So yeah.
Sometimes you want AI to fuck up, yeah? You want
it's just like when you're exploring a product, you're on the product like UX phase, or understanding features, what feels good and what doesn't feel good. I gave up sometimes on coming up with the ideas. I just moved it directly to
Yeah,
coding.
but as you said, I mean, both of you actually, that this kind of the cycle is just so short and it's
Yeah.
like so easy to get into this kind of state of exploration that, yeah, I agree. In certain situations, I would probably also just, you know,
Yeah.
let it go on a roll and see what happens. But again, at the same time, I often, knowing the limitations of the context
Yeah.
and how my prompts affect the behavior, I just have certain like specific instructions, such as like, hey, explore various options, ask me questions to guide this generation. Yeah.
What models do you use usually? And do you use thinking or not thinking in different modes?
This
Because
is a great segue to the next section. I'm happy to answer this question because now I want to actually understand your technical stack and kind of your tools that you are using. And as Michał, you asked models as well. So my current setup is Cloud Code. I prefer Cloud Code, and I also use Cursor for some things. Cloud Code, especially with Sonnet 4, I think for me is hard to beat. It has its quirks, but also what I realize is kind of once you learn the behavior of certain tool, you adapt to it. Yeah, so I know, like for example, Cloud Code has this annoying behavior that it adds coded by Cloud Code and Anthropic email into your commit messages. And I actually have no AI attribution rule in my global cloud.md file, which is like cursor rules for Cloud code, which it ignores. And I have to remind it from time to time. That's a quirk that I learned how to live with. But my go-to tools right now is Cloud Code with Sonnet 4 under the hood and Cursor.
okay.
Cursor, Windsurf, but Windsurf just because I do things a lot in the JetBrains IDs. I like PyCharm to work with. And the only downside of working with Cursor is that it's VS Code, so which I'm not used to. I tried to get used to it like for many years, never worked. Right now, Windsurf is like just getting better and better in PyCharm. So the Cascade, it's not as powerful as
So
Cursor.
Windsurf has like a plugin to PyCharm
Yes.
Okay.
It was like a byproduct for some time, but right now I think it's the same. They put the same level of development into this plugin to the core application.
You also experimented with Klein, didn't you? Or
Yes, Line is like because it's more like an open source and like a memory based. It's interesting. Right now, I'm interested in Z because it's like a totally it's not based on VS Code. It's made by I think the Atom guys. No, I don't know if you used the Atom IDE in the past. What is missing for me in the AI IDEs is like the collaboration part. They are not really designed to work together. It's like not really easy to give the context of, for example, like the remote and the pull request to the AI agent. It's maybe not hard, but it's not like by design. So I'm curious if that maybe can help with like a collaboration work with. So it's like me, some other developer, and the AI agent. So it's like a totally different level of working. And yeah, but Cursor and probably Windsurf is like the way. I don't
and in
use like
terms
the
of OS,
What?
in terms of OS, both of you are on Mac now, or
Yeah,
Michał,
yeah,
you're
I'm
on
on
Linux.
Linux.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm on Linux.
So Tomek,
Yeah, I'm,
you are on Mac. Or
but I think
Mac
everything
OS?
is both on Mac and Linux. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure
So
about
I'm also on
Windows.
Linux. I generally don't mind letting Claude use my terminal. There are so many tools that it can leverage that being on Linux actually helps. But probably, I mean, macOS would have similar experience.
Yeah. And on Windows, it can use WSL, so
Yeah, yeah.
Windows subsystem for Linux. I'm using Cursor now, Cloud for Sonnet Thinking mode. So not auto. I've noticed when it comes to working with OpenAI models, they tend to overthink and their code is lacking, at least for me. Gemini just hates to write code. I don't know how to make Gemini write code. It just gives me a ton of good ideas and doesn't want to do them.
So, but do you use the auto mode
No,
in cursor,
no,
or you always
no,
because
no. I've just
my experience is also that in auto code sometimes I ask something and that it ends up just giving me advice rather than doing the work, which is
it says, oh, very cool idea,
yeah.
and done. I've also tried with, for example, GPT-4.1 because it's very fast compared to other models, and it tends to just cut off in the middle of a sentence and say, yeah, whatever. I approve all of the comments that it does manually, so I press.
You don't auto accept anything.
No, I don't have the auto accept on. I'm not afraid about like it doing something bad, but I have seen that it just makes mistakes a lot when it comes to comments, and it tends to, for example, when it launches tests, sometimes for me, when it's auto accepted, it sometimes forgets to launch the test in a one run mode, and it gets stuck in the
whole
auto.
suite,
Yeah, the whole suite is running, and it takes 5 minutes. Sometimes I don't have the auto accept on because it tends to just get wrong comments. But this is what I'm trying to always improve with cursor rules. When a bad comment happens, I tend to take this part and generate a new rule. Don't use this, use this.
And you use cursor rules a lot?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you would use multiple cursor rules in a single project?
Yes. Yeah.
What about you,
Multiple
Tomek?
cursor
Sorry.
rules. Multiple cursor rules on different levels of the project also.
Yeah, in different directories.
Yeah. I also work, usually when I work with two projects at the same time, I use workspaces. So essentially in one editor I have front end and the back end opened. I also, for each of those workspaces, usually I have cursor rules in each of the like microservices, let's say, or parts of the workspace. I also have cursor rules.
And Tomek, you're also a heavy user of cursor rules?
Not a heavy user, but sometimes they're necessary because, the command lines they lack the quality. So it's hard for me. Sometimes I also approve the command line the agents generates and wants to run it because they tends to have mistakes and or even use or start application like in a totally different way without the cursor rule. Yeah. So they should probably know. Yeah, it's even in the Markdown side how to run the application, but they fuck it up. And also, some rules that help with coding, like using shortcuts with rules. So press B to verify, press S to summarize. Yeah, I just use some shortcuts in the chat. Yeah, most okay.
I also.
And also to be more predictable with command line, I use, for example, I don't use Git in the command line with AI agent. I have a rule that uses Git MCP because it's much more predictable, less mistakes. It's super easy. It's the space of possibilities.
So you don't use terminal GitHub or like sorry Git.
No, I mean,
you use MCP, or you are talking about GitHub.
The AI agent. I'm talking about the AI agent. It doesn't. The rule is that don't use like a Git terminal commands. Use Git MCP in most cases.
Wow.
Because you can limit what it can do to just like a limited set of options.
Interesting.
It's much less errors.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
It's like a general idea. Limit the possibilities that you give to LMs. They don't fuck up, and the command line is like endless space of possibilities. So it's really easy to make sense.
So I don't mind giving access to command line. I'm okay with the AI using Git, of course. I sometimes even create PRs with GitHub CLI. I've used the Fly CLI to deploy some Docker images. And again, like this comes back to this feedback loops that I talked earlier. Yeah, if the agent knows that there is a Fly CLI installed and is able to iterate its way through any problems, I don't really need to get involved. But as you, I would be very careful with how to accept the changes. In Claude, I'm not sure how this works in Cursor. In Claude, you can specify that certain comments are auto-accepted in a given session and certain comments are not auto-accepted. But this MCP idea is very cool.
Yeah, and also it doesn't have to be MCP. Just using like use a GitHub CLI. Right? We use GitLab CLIs, for example, to use the context of pull requests in a structured way for the agent. It's very easy. Never breaks. It's like very bulletproof.
I have one more question that when it comes to the future, I'm not sure if I can jumpstart the conversation, but have you used background agents?
No, but this is actually a good segue to one of the things that I wanted to ask you about other like non-IDE AI assistants, but like tools like CodeRabbit or Codex or that one that you mentioned. I don't know.
So I should go back to testing the tools again because I've been testing a lot of tools a year ago, making my own mistakes that I've said no one should make. But I've tested them a year ago for pull requests, and they worked terribly. Usually mentioning stuff that is obviously wrong, or getting into very small details that make no difference, at least for a coding style that I prefer. So I've noticed that the AI tools tended to always want to give an opinion about something, even though it matched the whole structure. I have to revisit it. So I wouldn't like advise anything about AI assistant code reviews or pull requests. But when it comes to coding agents, I'm very interested in this part, and I will be testing it out. I didn't manage.
You mean like Codex or Jules?
Or in Cursor right now, you, for example, or in other tools, you can, for example, say, okay, this is the part, fix it. You press enter, and it happens in the cloud.
Okay.
So it's no longer happening in your IDE. So you're essentially giving it tasks rather than vibe coding with it. So yeah, it's going back.
Do you have experience with CodeRabbit?
As I've said, a year ago. So I wouldn't give advices about it.
Tomek, what about you?
I would love to try CodeRabbit because the problem for me is AI can generate the spaghetti code like really fast. The changes are more like the pull requests are much larger, and it's hard to to manage them like being a human. So like AI agent on the other side or on the remote would be like cool. So CodeRabbit I think is like the tool to go, but I haven't tried it yet. But yeah, the background agents thing. Yeah.
So sorry, go on.
Just about the background agents, the only problem is that it's in alpha mode. So there is the privacy issues right now yet. So yeah, so to work with background agents in Cursor, you have to have a project that you are okay to push in the cloud. Yeah. Well, that's why probably I haven't used it yet.
I've been playing with CodeRabbit over the last couple of weeks. It's quite good. It's actually free if you want to use it on open source products, so it's kind of easy to experiment with. And it kind of kicks in whenever you have a new PR and like gives you a nice description of it. So it's helpful. Okay, I have two more things for today, and I know we are short on time, but I hope like maybe 5, maybe 10 minutes. I hope you can do it. First is predicting the future. Michał, you were eager to comment on it earlier, and actually this is indeed a question that I have to you. And let me maybe set the stage by saying that I read, I think yesterday or maybe 2 days ago, about some person saying that the experience of IDE kind of based software development is going to disappear over the next 1 to 2 years, and the way we build software is going to be very different. And initially I thought like that's probably not what's going to happen, but then I thought, but I know Michał, who actually talks to his code. He is a heavy user of QSpeak, which is a great tool that everybody should try. Not a sponsor of this show, but I want to promote it. And you as a founder of the tool. Do you actually talk to your IDE or your code now? Do you imagine working on your code on mobile at some point? How do you see the future here?
Yeah, I going like 12 years back. I have one colleague, Maciej Górski, and he was saying that the idea of writing code the way we write it right now is stupid, and it should work like you're saying right now. He was saying it 12 years ago, and he always thought there will
like
come
just talking about what you want to build.
Yeah, just talking. He was even a step ahead, and he said that there will be a chip in your brain, and you just think about it, and it happens. It's this level of feedback loop, but let's not go so far into the future. I think that the feedback loop is getting so short that the only part is validating the ideas. So essentially, we have automated a lot of writing the code. I'm still interested about testing how things work. We don't have, and this is a place that not many companies are exploring. So essentially doing automated A/B testing without the input of a physical human, just purely through AI. This is the next step for me, because this will get rid of the driver or the tester from the feedback loop, and I don't know what will happen then. So my two big points that I have is prompting will disappear. So essentially, prompt engineering will be a thing of the past in a matter of 12 to 24 months. I think it will stop mattering what prompts will you write. It will get so good at
rewriting whatever
rewriting
your
what
is,
you're saying, that because we have multi-step with agents, that it will not matter anymore, and the thinking part is getting better. And the second part I have is that the agent part, so essentially getting rid of the coding part from your system into the cloud, will be the next step. So those are my two predictions, and the third one is automatic also testing. So getting, because the only part that we're not automating yet is the testing part, and I feel like it's coming.
Interesting. Tomek, are there any features that you missed that you feel will be present in those tools in like a year or two?
Yeah, I think that the AI should respond back to me in voice. I would love to talk to it, and I would like, really talk to it, to have a chat, and not just send comments and have to read. So it's like an independent process that it's happening. The code that is writing is independent from the chat I can have with it. And also, I think that, the prompt engineering is, I would say, it's almost now it's done in the AI agentic IDs.
I remember you said it a couple of weeks ago to me that you don't remember when was the last time you wrote a prompt manually. I think it was you who made this comment.
Yeah. So, but you still have to explain yourself very well, and you have to understand what you want to achieve. But it's not prompt engineering, but it's like the skill for everyone in every domain. You need to understand what you want to do, and the models will keep getting better. So like focusing on some straight workflows and like really super cool prompts that you craft over the time doesn't make sense, because they will be obsolete in a moment.
Yeah. I agree. And some of these problems that people complained about 6 months ago, or like these models are hallucinating libraries, or these models are whatever, like breaking your code base by RM command. It's not something that I feel is a problem these days at all. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, last section, I promise. And I mean, it's been great. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. Rapid fire. So I will just have a single question, and please give me your short answer. And if you want to skip it, it's also fine. Michał, do you miss manual coding?
No. No.
Not at all?
No. I don't
Tomek.
I prefer this.
Okay. Tomek, how often do you say please in your commands, in your prompt?
Begging the LLM to do not that often right now. And
Okay.
I don't threaten it anymore.
You used to. You used to.
I used to, yeah.
Okay, so next question to Michał. Those tools are very good at languages that are very popular, like Python and JavaScript. Do you think there is a future for Elixir? And I know I'm just
No.
now
There is,
trying to
there
pick
is-
you into this because you are a big Elixir fan, as I know.
I would say that the Elixir community. I'm even playing with a item from the Elixir meetup. The Elixir language is changing because of AI. They are adding static type suggestions. It's not pure static typing, but static type suggestions because they want to improve how AI works with the language.
It's very
And
interesting.
it's a very interesting trend. As I've said, the languages are evolving because of AI, and I feel like the new languages are coming that will be built purely for AI usage. Yeah. And
that is actually a very interesting future that's going to unfold. Because I think right now we are in the kind of a transition state. Next question, Tomek. Will Anthropic acquire Cursor?
No.
You have some inside information. You sound so sure.
I wonder if they can afford it. I've heard that they're gathering a 1 billion round right now. I feel like Cursor is estimated, I would say, at least 10 billion.
They should probably do it like 6 months ago or a year ago.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm asking this is that I see a lot of good energy between the two teams. They've posted some posts together or some videos I've seen, and like my immediate thought was like, is there some chemistry going on like that's deeper than just here? Because obviously OpenAI acquired Windsurf.
It's a natural match, to have the ID and the LLM company.
Cursor is probably the biggest Anthropic user in the world.
Cursor is the biggest. Oh, yeah. It took me some time to parse that. Michał, are juniors doomed?
No.
Why not?
For me, it's a huge opportunity, and the difference right now is that the time you will spend on learning is like we're getting to the point where time is getting more and more valuable of a single person, and junior devs, or not only devs, but junior people tend to have more time than senior people. So I'm going the opposite direction.
So you see this as an opportunity for them to learn and acquire new skills quicker?
Yes. Yeah. I feel like when you're building a new company, get 3 juniors for the price of 1 senior, give them Cursor, let them, again, fuck up, and let them learn very quickly.
Okay.
It's going to be happening, and it's going to be happening very quickly.
We don't have time to explore that, maybe in the next episode.
Maybe next week.
That's definitely an interesting conversation. Last question, and feel free, you can answer both. What's the biggest surprise when using these tools in the last, let's say, 2 months, good or bad? Maybe Tomek, you can go first, and if you don't want to, Michał can go first.
I wouldn't say in the last 2 months, but 6 months ago, or 5 months, around 6 months ago, or in January, I've decided to try those tools again after a year of almost not using them. And as I've said, the feeling of letting go for a person that is so experienced, it just changes your life. So for me, the fact that I'm willing to let go of the ownership that I'm mentioning here, and I feel I'm the only one doing it at this point in time, at least in this conversation, it's amazing. For me, it's a it's a life, like a life probably threatening my career decision. And this is the interesting part.
It's super interesting, but again, I mean, it's worth another conversation for
Yes,
sure.
yes, yes.
But so I don't want to I don't want to go into this now. But I get the point.
This is this is the part where I was like, oh my god.
Tomek, you want to add something?
Yeah. I think that what is surprising for me that the working with like code, it was always like nice thing to do. I have this brain that likes to do things complex and to write code, but it's surprising to me that it's much more enjoyable.
Yes.
So it's harder to have like a burnout, to be overwhelmed by stuff, because it's much more. There is much more pleasure.
Yeah.
But with one downside, there is much more information coming to my brain, which can be sometimes an overload, because I can process much more information, and the speed of my brain is the same as like 1 year ago, or maybe worse.
Even with five interns working for you, it's still the same speed.
Yeah.
What surprised me, or one of the things that surprised me, is the pace that these tools are evolving. And my setup now is different to my setup 6 months ago. I feel like I'm a lot better and a lot more efficient, and I'm sure that in 6 months we are going to be better than today. After this conversation, I still stand with my claim that in order to make most of this, and as I was saying, like by what I mean by that is like multiplying your productivity by an order of magnitude. In order to be good at this, you need to be a senior engineer in order to be good vibe coding. And what vibe coding means is, as we have been discussing, is letting agents work for you, letting the agents access your terminal, access various tools. It does not, if it's June 2025 and you are still copying and pasting code between a ChatGPT window and your PyCharm, stop. It's not what vibe coding is. And if you are complaining that this doesn't give you results, then it's on you, not on Cursor or on Cloud. Guys, it has been great. Sorry,
I have one more thing. The opportunity that AI gives me to have more time with other people, this is the part that I'm exploring right now. Usually, when doing something complicated, I had to close myself on the roof or whatever for 4 hours, and I wasn't available to anyone for anything. Right now, I can be present with people. So it's so much time for cooperation with other people.
So you mean that it released a lot of time?
That's
one of the
it
things
released
that
a lot of
unlocked.
time to give a possibility to talk to other people, to cooperate, to do stuff that is also from the product side. The release of the new Claude, etc., the sonnets, the new ones, just made it more. It makes it more and more available to have more time to talk to people.
Yeah.
So essentially, talking more to AI gives you more opportunity to talk to people.
I'm really happy that it gave you time to talk to us. Thanks a lot for coming. Thank you, and see you around in future episodes.